Skechcraft is recorded in front of a live internet audience and supported by listeners like you. Please be sure to leave a review on iTunes, like and share our Facebook page, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All links can be found at sketchcraft.com. That's Skechcraft, C-R-A-F-T, the name of the podcast.com. Remember, every little bit counts and it all helps to grow the show. Thanks.
Was it so amusing to see the waves go crash down on me and drag me into the sea? Was it so easy to be so indifferent to me when I wear my heart on my sleeve?
Welcome to Skechcraft, the podcast for art, games, and process junkies. I'm Rob Duenas, full-time illustrator and graphic artist elsewhere. This is an unedited podcast, which will probably contain strong language, so listener discretion is advised.
Like a willow tree, getting pulled down by gravity. By gravity. My gravity. My gravity.
And welcome to Skechcraft, the podcast for art, games, and process junkies. I'm Rob Duenas. Like many of you, I grew up reading comic books. From the action-packed world of mainstream superheroes to the gritty zipatone pages of the pulp-made indie scene, one thing always remained the same. It was the imagery and the artists that drew me and my mind into these worlds and gave me the inspiration to one day create the same. From the two-man crew of Eastman and Laird, the creators of TMNT, to the seven-man Hollywood-style launch of Image Comics in the early 90s, never before have I seen such a return to independent comic book creations as we have today. Thanks to crowdfunding from such sites as Kickstarter, stories that would never have made it into the stands can finally be printed and shipped directly to their fan base. Truly, we have reached new heights in the comic book industry. Joining me now is one such creator who recently funded his first Kickstarter campaign, Midnight Tiger, and is preparing to ship the first issue as we speak. Ray Anthony Height, comic book illustrator for Marvel Comics, freelance artist for various indie comic companies, as well as sketch cards and commissions, independent comic book creator and publisher. Ray, it is great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Rob. It's good to be here. It's been, like we spoke earlier, it's been a long time since we saw each other, so we gotta rectify that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let's tell me a little bit about Midnight Tiger and its inception.
Wow. Okay, that's almost another podcast in and of itself. But I have been having the creator-owned dreams for a long time. Like, I had this list I posted on DeviantArt of all of the pitches that I put together, and I've had all these different stories. And Midnight Tiger really started, as an image thing, and it in its original inception, it did not pan out. So
you're talking for Image Comics?
Yes, Image Comics. It did not pan out, and that's a whole other story.
Was that when it was called Icons?
Well, when it was called Icons, that was well after that, because
well after that. So you had a pitch, and you pitched it to Image, and it fell through or didn't go through.
2003, I think.
Okay.
I think it was a little while. It was probably about 10 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, and it was Midnight Tiger. That's exactly what it was. And again, it didn't work out, so it sat on the shelf. And I didn't bother it because it was with another creator, and until that particular creator said, because somebody saw it, I posted the image because he posted it up on his forum, and he said, this is one of the things that could have been. Well,
so the writer posted an image of something that, so basically it's one of those, oh, here's what I wanted to do, but the suits wouldn't let me kind of thing, right? Here's what it could have been. Y'all missed out, basically. And I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but basically, like, here's something we could have done, and it didn't work out for whatever reason.
Right, but I'd already done, a bunch of work and stuff like that. So, and I was trying to do my own thing. So I did Icons, and Icons actually came from this creation that I had with another friend of mine that I collaborated with, Corey Spencer, called New Haven. I don't know if you remember but if you dig through my DeviantArt stuff, you can see it. And it was the same group, Teenage Heroes, who actually, with that one, they were all adopted. And that was a pretty cool storyline, but we pitched that to Image, and Image, for the most part, rejected it. But Eric Larson, who is despite what other people think, he's a fantastic person. And he had told me, he said,
hold on. Eric Larson is one of the in case you people don't know, fellow Kickstarter sketchcrafters, Eric Larson is one of the founders of Image Comics and then the creator and artist for Savage Dragon, amongst Marvel and Hulk and all that back in the past. So you're talking about Eric Larson saw the book, or you pitched it to him.
He saw, and he said, it'll probably take you a couple of issues to work out the kinks, but basically he didn't want to necessarily gamble on that. So, and his thing was, some of the best lessons is you basically learn on the job. So he said, well, let's hook you up with someone else, and you do some work for them. And that's how I started a couple of gigs at Noble Causes and other stuff. And
right, so you pitching the book as Icons basically led you to getting freelance work at Image or some of the other stuff that you've done, right?
Well, yeah, with Icons came actually after I got my first job in Marvel, because all the other pitches didn't work out. So, I said, well, let me just try to dabble in my own thing. And that's how Icons got created, with all the characters that I had created, because I liked what Kirkman was doing with Invincible. How it's like tons of characters in there. I mean, it's basically this whole superhero universe. So I had that. I've had the universe, since I was a kid, so I was a teenager. So I wanted to do the same thing. But the problem was I was already working, for Marvel. So, and you know how work comes. It's not consistent. So I figured, let me develop this or whatever while I am waiting for the next job. Well, there was a point where I just kept getting work, and I had to put Icons on the shelf. And I always wanted to feature, just like Invincible, in the vein that there's one main character. And kind of the world, the way things work revolve around him. And I'd had the concept of what Gavin, who is the main character in Midnight Tiger, the protagonist, what he was, who he was about, the story I wanted to tell, and all that stuff. And, I said, well, I went back and forth with this, and I said, let's just call it what it is. I mean, it's about Midnight Tiger. The icons are the background, sort of.
Right. It implies more of a team, the name and of itself, because it has an S in it,
Exactly. And
right.
He, not to give too much away, but, his whole thing is the icons will be a very important part of this book. And the name itself means something. When I conceived it, and I thought, honestly, when I titled it, why hasn't there been a comic with the title Icons in it anyway, with the name, So I think that would be pretty cool.
Well, I think that's also an interesting choice. Getting into basically setting up Midnight Tiger, what it is in this sort of era of brand marketing, most people probably would just go with a generic term as icons, right? Like heroes or, villains was another book that I participated in on some level. So, but to me, like going with the name Midnight Tiger does definitely lock it down to who your protagonist is, that.
Exactly.
So even though, that's probably a name that could generate a lot of NBC like buzz. A Midnight Tiger to me says specifically this is about, a singular character who what hunts at midnight, but
yeah, that's exactly
right.
That is it.
So Midnight Tiger specifically is about your lead protagonist, Gavin.
Yeah, his name is.
So let's just set that up really quick. So exactly the premise of Midnight Tiger, and where it's going.
All right. Well, let me give you the I don't want to call it the elevator pitch, but
that's fine.
Midnight Tiger is about Gavin Shaw, who growing up in basically an urban neighborhood where there's not a lot of superhero traffic, but he loved them. He's a big fan of them, and he, would see all the crime going on in his neighborhood, but on television he would see all these heroes going to the large cities, akin to a metropolis, or, even though Gotham is seedy, it's still a large city. And they would never come to his place. They would never come to his city to help out. So after a while, after seeing a lot of crime and deaths and stuff go on, even in his own life, where his mother, he lost his mother to drugs, and a friend, lost a child in a random drive-by shooting. He just got disillusioned, and really, although he secretly still loved the heroes, he kind of became bitter and just disheartened. So, by happenstance, one of the heroes that was in the icons, he was walking home from school and he saw one of these guys in the alley, and he thought to himself, well, here, finally, this is my wish. They come to the city, but this guy's hurt, and he's a kind kid, good kid. So he runs to his aid, but, no good deed goes unpunished. And the same person who actually harms the hero, known as Lion's Blood, comes back to finish the job, but he sees Gavin there, and he takes care of him too. And he wakes up in the hospital a few days later after the incident, and he's miraculously healed. But there's no sign of the hero he saved, Lion's Blood. Turns out that he helped him. He gave him the same serum that gave Lion's Blood his power, and saved Gavin's life. And chose not to save his own. So now he has this mantle that he has to live up to, but he doesn't want to, because the icons, what they end up trying to do is coming to recruit him. And he's like, no, I have to save my own city, because what's going to happen is if you recruit me, I'm going to be taken out of here and sent somewhere else to help other people when I need to help where I come from. And that's really the setup for the story.
Nice. So at what point do you, okay, so at what point when you have this idea, do you go and find a new writer or put together a team, or then go and decide to crowdfund it? I mean, like, at what point, like, in what order does that occur? So
the creative team comes first, because I don't, the crowdfunding part came where all other avenues seemed a little less likely to make this happen. But I'd already had a team set up, and that was, it came together kind of rocky, but in the end was the best. I made some of the best choices I could make with that, and I'm very pleased with the team that I have. They're just amazing people. And it was really, I had studied what was happening with Kickstarter for a while, but I was a little apprehensive and at what was happening, and I had actually pitched Midnight Tiger to Image once I set everything up for the Kickstarter. I actually hadn't heard anything from them. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know what happened there. I was pretty sure that they liked what they saw, but I didn't get a response. So I just said, well, I talked to my wife about it, who really was the catalyst for me just getting off my butt and just going ahead and setting that Kickstarter thing up. She's like, well, what do you have to lose? So that was it.
At the worst, it just doesn't work, right? Which you've experienced plenty of so far. So
Well, that's the thing. I was so gun shy, so tired of the rejection, and what happens with us as professionals, we just decide, well, it's such a large undertaking when you do things yourself. It's easy to get a job at Marvel or DC. Well, it's not easy, but once you have the job, just to stay working for someone else who takes care of all of the other stuff. All you need to do is draw and do it on time. That's it. But here, you're the boss. You're the boss of getting things done, of making the plans, of paying people who need to get paid, of getting things published, of all the things that a publisher would do, you're doing. And that is a lot. And as for me, doing my job is, I created the book. I do all of the plots, and then I got my good friend Dwayne Feenstra to write the book. So that worked out great, because that takes one of the jobs off my hands. Because trust me, if I had to write it too, if I had to do the script, it would never come out. It would just take forever. So, and it's already taken longer than I like it to, but it is what it is. But anyway, once all that stuff's taken care of and I have my team together and I put the stuff on Kickstarter, you're kind of biting your nails because you don't know what's going to happen really. You're putting forth, you're the marketing guy, you're promoting the heck out of it, with the help of others. And for the most part, you're relying on two things: the kindness of strangers and the ability to evoke a response with your work. So
I will say to the evoking a response with your work, if there's anything I can personally say, having gone to conventions for I want to say for about 10 years now, is that you pretty quickly learn how to do that if you're savvy enough, right?
Totally.
Because you know what I mean, you literally have to sell someone who doesn't know who you are with just the image on your booth. And that whole oh, I'm gonna try to drag people into my booth and get them to buy something doesn't really work half the time, or more than half the time. You just annoy people, or they want to move on. But to get people to sort of recognize your work, if you do it enough, you sort of learn, I won't say the formula, but you do develop what works for you. You find out, more often than not that people tend to resonate to certain things that you do. Does that make any sense, or does that apply to you?
That applies to me 110%. I mean, I know exactly, and you're right. There is a formula. There is a formula to it. I mean, there's variations, but there's a base. And there's certain things that people, or at least most people, will respond to, especially in a convention setting. Hopefully you don't have to go too far outside of what you're comfortable with to make that happen. You know what I mean? I mean, you've done that, I'm sure, Rob, where there's certain things that is not necessarily something that you would do, but it's not something you wouldn't do to get people to notice your stuff.
Well, I think for me, and this is something else with Kickstarters, is being available and being approachable. Now, as an artist, especially when you're surrounded with that many people, maybe you've had a bad time traveling somewhere, maybe getting into the place wasn't so fun, or setting a booth up wasn't, but you can sort of withdraw back into your hole.
Yeah.
And I liken it to going on stage. Now it's time to perform. It's not an act, but it is not, my everyday version of me, the one that I live and breathe with and I have to interact with everyone is actually a lot quieter. It's introspective. I'm an artist. That's how it is.
Right.
But on Kickstarter and at conventions, I believe that, you have to be one, you have to have a good sense of energy, but it needs to be genuine. It can't be this nervous, tickish stuff. You have to learn to be comfortable with accepting compliments and not, your stuff's great. Oh no, don't say that,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they came all the way over to compliment you. I mean, I think that's huge in and of itself. And, me personally, I just happen to like people. And I like to talk to people and see what makes them tick, because everybody's time is more valuable than money itself. So if a fan comes up and decides they want to talk to me or check out my work or whatever, what they have to say is valid. Everything they have to say is valid, because they could have chose the guy at the table next to me, but they didn't. So that's why I could never understand why some guys, they're just rude. They're just rude to some of these fans. And, I know people can be a little, it's like they know you, we're online a lot, and we promote ourselves online, and a lot of the fans, they know us from online. So when they meet us, it's like we've been hanging out for years. And sometimes people are uncomfortable with that. They're uncomfortable with, you don't really know me. And it's true. It's the internet. No one really knows anyone, but there is common courtesy and there is an appreciation, because there are so many choices, and the competition is incredible, especially nowadays. So when a fan chooses you, that's gold, man. And that's
it's what I believe, and how I sort of phrase is people may not know me, and that's true, but they know my work. If they come to you, they know your work, and they're fans of your work. And it doesn't matter if you, I think the fight that sometimes comes along is that people believe that, oh, I'm competing with, say, Joe Mad's art or Jim Lee's art, but no. You're really competing with your own art. If people people know who the other artists are. They're aware of other artists, but there's something about what you do they find unique, and they're coming to you for that. Like that's what they really, they definitely associate that with you. And I think that at that point, always putting your best foot forward in terms of what you're doing and what you're producing is really your best bet. Like I've long since stopped. Like I don't really look at comic books anymore, for that sort of inspiration. As a fan, I go and I pick up stuff because I'm a fan of that creator,
Yeah.
But in terms of an artist, like I really have to look at what I've done, what I like to do, what I want to continue to do, and what sort of has had a good response with my own work. And I sort of feel that the work gets in the way for some artists, like if they can't handle rejection, like I once had rejection. Like I once had a kid, and the first con I ever went to looked at the turtles I drew and went, "Hey, he's making fun of the turtles," and they all had a good laugh. And you're like, I really, damn it, I tried that. Like, I was okay, like I'll write that one down, But I mean, if you just start chastising the little kid, I mean, it's with you two, that's never going to end up very well.
No.
So getting back to Kickstarter really quick, let's just kind of get through that. So at what point, okay, so you set up the Kickstarter campaign, and you're updating or you're commenting with people. Now, did you form your own LLC? Like, did you decide I'm going to be a publisher? Am I going to form my own little like independent, a tax break thing, or are you doing that sort of like outside that system?
No, my wife and I formed Right Height Media in September of 2011, and our original, well, really, this is all a part of our goal anyway, is to self-publish our own stuff, our own IP, and because the way things were going, there's this whole trend in larger, or not even saying larger companies, new startup companies who don't necessarily have their own IP, but they take other creators' IP who just want their work out, and they hold on to it for 5 years or more, locking, this creator's IP where they can't do anything with it, even though, they probably have more avenues to just put it out, and the company does nothing but just hold on to it to hopefully, get a movie deal or whatever.
Yeah, and if people need an example of this for companies that no longer exist, so I'm not throwing any current companies under the bus, you can go look at like Viper Comics, or if you remember Arcana or Tokyo Pop, where they take a lot of... Go ahead.
I think Arcana's still around.
Are they? Okay. Well, I don't care if I piss him off. So Dr. So-and-so, I don't care. So, but what I'm trying to say is that basically you have people that accept pitches, and then how it generally works is that I go to a con and I talk to these guys, and they mean well, they want to publish your work, and usually the deal is that they retain co-publishing rights to whatever you produce under their banner. So if you had a pitch or whatever artwork you produce, they own the art, and they have the right to publish that for, usually it's 5 years, or say at a certain set amount of time. Could be 2 years, could be whatever.
Right. And
then whether they do that or not, like maybe they print 100 copies, like whatever that contract is, that is in limbo until that fades out. And even if that expires, any of that art that you produce is questionable too. Like those contracts are very tricky unless you got an IP lawyer that you're able to run that by. Yep. And at that point, they won't talk to you, by the way, if you do that. They don't return emails. It's true. It's very true. So then you basically have to create everything you did from scratch or give up and move on. So you wanted to avoid that altogether and just basically create a shelter, a little imprint for yourself that you could produce full-time or part-time. Was your goal to go full-time, or in the meantime?
Yeah, like it's the eventual goal is to, if something catches on and we're generating enough revenue to just do it full-time, and that's what will happen. Because and in the meantime, we're using it also as a production company. Like Viz Media hired us to produce, to help them produce Redikai. The graphic.
Oh yeah, we did all the shirts at work.
See, there you go, 6 degrees.
I know, right?
Yeah, right. Now
small world.
We're doing Monsuno for them too, so that's another thing.
Okay, so now you got the LLC. You're going to be doing comics more than part-time, usually full-time, maybe this and that. Now you've been funded, right? Now I want to give some people some quick tips, if you could, on Kickstarter, like how I've noticed, and you tell me if I'm wrong or if you agree or disagree or what you think is missing, is that I sort of feel that people launch a Kickstarter campaign and then they don't update, they just comment,
Yeah.
and those comments get buried, right?
Yeah.
Right, among right, and no one ever, and then people have never updated, and you're like, man, I've been talking all day on this thing. So, or people feel like they have to have some monumental update scheme, that so they don't post an update until they feel enough has accrued, until there's a worthy update, and no one thinks like that. Like the average people don't, they just want to hear that you're alive and making something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're looking for the end result, and they just want to have some idea of how things are going, and that this is not a hoax. Like, you're not just taking their money.
Right. So what basic advice would you give to anyone who launched a campaign within, the structure of it? Just a couple points that you think.
Well, I'll say this. The thing is, when you get into Kickstarter, it's a big deal. And as far as the updates are concerned, I felt guilty because I waited a month, and it was not that I waited on purpose. It was because I was busy producing this book that I just updated with my own Kickstarter with the Midnight Tiger stuff. So, but people are appreciating everything you do, everything you're putting up there, because, in the beginning, they do not know where you're at least, actually where you're at. So you kind of give them as much information as you can. And that's why when I do update, I update with photos and progress pictures and stuff like that. So it's important. So they see, yeah, this stuff is getting produced. But when you decide to go into the Kickstarter thing and it's just you don't have a company, because sometimes companies are involved with Kickstarters, which like Zenoscope or whatever, and they have a team of people doing things. But when it's just you, it's a big job. And really think about it, because I think the one thing that I wish that I could have changed was because as far as I'm concerned, I think as far as the Midnight Tiger project is concerned, it did pretty well. I'm very proud of it and grateful. But some of the stuff I wish I had given myself a little bit more time. So that's something to consider when you're doing it, depending on where you are in your production. So that's something to consider. Other tips that I would give someone starting a Kickstarter is be present. The people want to know you. They want to be able to trust you because they're, backing you. They're backing your project. So at best, all you can do is do a nice video, introduce yourself, have some type of background where people can get to know you, link to whatever your blogs or your galleries or whatever it is, so they can see, who you are, because that's another thing that will kind of endear people to you, is that they know, or at least they have an idea of who it is that they're backing. So that's a big tip. That's why people with videos seem to do far better than people without videos. Especially videos that have to do with who you are. Other things that I would suggest you do is, if it's just comics, because again, I can't speak to anything else, but if it's just comics, lots of artwork. Because most of us, it's a visual medium, so they want to see something. And that's really it. That's really all I can tell you.
I know that sounds basic, but people have posted Kickstarters where it's like, I'm going to make a comic, and there's a description. I was like, hey, fantastic, can't wait to buy that screenplay. Good job, buddy. Lovely, Helvetica. So, okay, let's move on. Okay, so it's post Kickstarter. You're getting to work now, full production. Just run me through really quickly what your typical workday is like via from your creation of what you do, or working, because you have a remote office, right? So you're coordinating with your writer, you're coordinating with your colorist, and excluding family. Let's just talk straight production, right? Like what you're doing on a typical day.
Okay, so I really actually start work between 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm checking email to see if whatever I sent out is colored, lettered, whatever, whatever that is. I usually have a plan for my week and a loose plan for my month, depending on what it is I'm doing. But if I'm working on a page, most of the time, let's take it from scratch. I do my layouts, and usually I do between 2 and 5 layouts a day. If I do 5, that's my day, because it usually takes me 2 to 3 hours to do detailed layouts, and that's my thing. I do about half a page, half of a 8.5 by 11 copy paper size, so it's like 4 by whatever, and my layouts are on that. And then I blow them up, but I try to get them tight as possible. I think Jamal Idle has the same process, and I actually got this process from J. Scott Campbell from a book called Comic Book Art by Comic Book Artists or something like that. So,
oh yeah,
you read that? That was great.
Oh yeah. So, Jim Lee was in there, Alex Ross.
That's it. So I learned so much from that book. And so I've been doing that for years. And with the new edition of Manga Studio, I go in, I scan that stuff in, and tighten everything up. Then I print that out and this is a process I got from Mark Brooks. I print that out. I change the lines to blue and print that out on my own paper. So I got a Brother printer that prints out on 11 by 17. And I print that bad boy out, and I do my type pencils, and that's it. And so that would be, if I'm just doing artwork. A lot of times what I do, especially in the production with the Kickstarter stuff, I have meetings with printers. I'm checking up on how I want, like with the script. Dwayne Fincher, who's writing Midnight Tiger, and myself go over the script from time to time and different things like, I think we just recently spoke about the second issue, and just trying to look forward, look ahead to seeing how things are going to be mapped out. And then there's a signing that I'm supposed to do actually this Saturday, a week from today. And we lost our printer. We lost our printer rep. So that's another thing that happens. Like, you have to be prepared for this kind of stuff. Well, in a way. That's why I kind of wish I had more time. But so I had to renegotiate with the same printer but a different rep. So that's why it's another thing that pushes back. And then.
So hold on one second. So if people aren't familiar with the printing process, I did printing, through Kinko's and through a lot of other places for about 3 or 4 years. And basically, they're usually at a print house is they have a sales rep or a printing rep. And this is a person who sits in a room and they sort of manage all the accounts. And there's usually 1, maybe 2 or 3, depending on how big the place is. And your quote, what you use to get printed is sort of through them. Like, you have a contract and they sort of meet it, and it's negotiable. It's not like a set cost where you go to, you go to Kinko's and, or you go to Burger King and, well, it's 99 cents. You can talk to them, and depending on if they know you're an independent guy, they can work different deals out and whatnot. So when you lose that account, that rep, you basically, the company really isn't beholden to honor that contract. Like they can, but they can also just be like, well, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't even know you. So you basically have to go and renegotiate with the same printing company. And so your funding for Kickstarter, at least for the first issue, right, that was based off your initial amount that the rep quoted you. So now you have to renegotiate. And so you're biting nails, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right.
That's exactly what it is. So but the new rep is pretty good, and the company, the printer that we're doing is Cross Blue. I know they have another name because they do overseas from China printing, but their local printer, I believe, is Cross Blue. So
that's at a Palmdale.
Actually, it's in Chino or Chino Hills or something.
In California.
In California, yes.
Right. So.
It's about a 70-mile drive for me. So instead of them shipping it to me, I'm just going to drive and pick up the books when they're
That's always best. It's something else. Something I've always tried to talk to people. Even when I was at Game Fan, they were doing a lot of like printing for marketing materials and like, do you know where we can go online? I said, you're in a business park. Talk around. There's usually some little print house that you don't even know, and in their case, it was actually their neighbor. They didn't even know. Right next to them's a printer. And, yeah, I know, right? So you wouldn't even know. And the best part about it is is you can generally find people that care, because these guys have like, they aren't too big where like, they don't give a shit. Like they actually care about what they print. And you save your ton of shipping, because you could just pick the damn things up. If they're wrong, you can, they'll fix it there or quote you there. You don't have to deal with the back and forth. But more to the point, being able to actually talk to a printer in person is a hell of a lot better, in my opinion, than ever having to go through an online deal. And I've gone through them all. So because I just think that as creators, you tend to go, well, I sent the file, and they go, well, your file's messed up, and that doesn't mean anything.
Right? Yeah, that means nothing.
Right.
I mean, you don't even know what it is that supposedly messed up, and it could be something so simple, and you're waiting a week to hear back. I mean, the online thing, it can be a bit dodgy. So, just going straight to the source. And I've always been a person like that. If I can go be there, I will be there. And, I've had a couple of meetings with these guys, and, and I think it's the best thing. And trust me, I'd rather, drive the 70 miles than to spend $200 on shipping. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, obviously. Well, because you still have to ship them out anyway, right? Like, so it's double shipping, really.
Right. So, it's going to be, I'm going to take the shipping. It's going to cost probably, depending on the way we do it, about $200 tops to ship out everybody's stuff. The great thing is that there was, and this is some more advice on Kickstarter, if there is, always try the digital option. It will save you money on shipping. And
any digital rewards are best, because they just get a file, you can send them,
And most of the people are actually, if things go well, and I'm hoping they do, although I'm waiting on a response from one of the creative team, plus my own stuff, we will probably be able to send out our PDFs by next Monday, not this coming Monday, but the Monday after that. So everybody, and I mean everybody that backed it, will actually be able to read the book within a week to a week and a half. And then they will be able to expect their print and their T-shirts and all that other stuff, shortly thereafter. So
that's fantastic.
I mean, it's exciting. It took me a while for it to sink in once the thing got funded. Like, this is for real. Like, this will be my actual book, because I did an anthology with Ape, and I love the guys at Ape, but we did this Cereal in Pajamas.
Right. Yeah. Cereal Pajamas. Chamba did a cover, and what's his face from Jack?
Jack Lawrence.
There you go. Jack Lawrence did. Yeah. No, Chamba did that monster cover. Jack Lawrence did the one with the kid. It's a little kid playing. It's the cover with the kid playing in front of the TV.
Yeah, that has the cereal box, and exactly. Right. This is pretty cool. So yeah, I did that, and one of the characters that I created, Protostar, is in that. And that was, I mean, even though I had, and just so people, listening to the podcast knows, that I self-published before when I was 19 with a group of my friends. So this is not necessarily anything new, but it's more doing it at a professional level now is interesting and a lot of fun. And I often think during this process, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Well, that's that's everything, like if I had known 5 years ago, what the hell, Yeah, truly. Well, that's what, in my opinion, the reason why I started the cast was actually to sort of just consciously try to help those people, avoid mistakes. They'll probably make them all, because that's just the way the process goes. But there's so many mistakes that can be made, or just experiences that you feel like you're the only one who's gone through. Like, you aren't the only one who, got picked up to do a book and everyone was excited and the writer turned in this 50-page script for a 22-page story and the editors fought over what to keep, what not to keep, and you started working and had to redo your work, and then you didn't get paid enough and you were hoping, and it didn't work out. And 2 years later, you're like, what the hell? You're not the only one.
I mean, that's the demon, and that's the demon that lurks in this industry. So, yeah. But it's fun. I mean, I hear a lot of us, and a lot of us kind of gripe about the negative parts of what we do, but at the end of the day, it's still fun. There's still kind of a thing where if more people could do it, they would do it. But it's we have a job and we have a talent and a skill set that is very exclusive, to say the least, because it's, Rob, it's fun to draw. It's fun to create.
Yeah, drawing and creating is the fun part. Feeling as though you've done it for an audience of just yourself, no matter what you've done, is probably like I'm not a guy to dwell on the negative. I sort of feel that it turns towards that discussion when there's no alternative to failure, right? Like there's no way to be successful now. And what do I determine as successful? Is it financial? If is it recognition? Is it creating a quality product? And as artists, we're always kind of focused on making the best thing we can make. And all the other things that get in the way of that or present themselves as a challenge to that, either with the industry set up or just because, life happens, that stuff sort of like throws us a curveball and we can be affected, like, oh, I can't believe I did something and people didn't like it. Well, that's not a reason not to do it again. It just means that, you need to sort of like take a step back, which I think as artists, I think that for me, that's the hardest part to learn, that, it's okay to take a step back and say, hey, here's a month or two where I sort of like reevaluated and did some other stuff and I can come back to something. I think sometimes we want to keep pounding it until it works right, and it's like that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is fantastic. You're going to ship the first issue, well, within the month, one way or the other. And then are you going to just roll into a second issue, or are you doing another campaign are you funding each issue individually?
That thought crossed my mind, and I think, at this point, I just want to get the first one out, see how it does, and go from there, because, right now, Dwayne's finishing up the second issue with the script, and, once everything gets rolling with the first issue, and we see how well received or not it is, because I'm going to send a couple over to the people at Newsarama and Comicbook and all those other news sites to review it, get a little publicity, a little FaceTime on the bigger comic news sites and see how that goes. And the second issue, depending on how things work and how it sells, because I still got to make a living, see how that goes. But the dream, the goal is to have this continue as it is planned to. In print form, because I love the digital medium, that's great, but there's something about print that most comic book readers they're not going to throw out. They're not going to throw out the window. They're going to buy the print.
Well, anything tangible feels more credible.
Yeah, thank you. I wouldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly what it is. So we're going to continue with that.
Well, I backed the campaign, and I'm looking forward to getting my issue, Ray. And I'll definitely be talking about it on the cast when it comes out, reading it. It would be great, depending on however it ends out, if you move on or if you're able to continue down the road later this year, to be able to have you back on the cast and sort of see where you're going to go with that and get your feedback on how everything went.
All right, it'd be my pleasure.
Well, thank you again, Ray. Ray Anthony Height, creator, owner, entrepreneur, Midnight Tiger. Really, really thank you for joining the show. And if anybody wants to continue to purchase an issue right now or get up on the board, where can they find you? Where can we get a hold of Ray?
I'm going to be setting up a Midnight Tiger site right now. There is a fan site or a fan page on Facebook. So you can just look up Midnight Tiger on Facebook, and it's there, or Ray Anthony Height, or Ray Height Comics, I'm sorry, on Facebook, and check for updates there. But on the site, once the book gets all done in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have it available, and it's going to be on Indie Planet, so you can get something there. And it's going to be probably in a lot of local shops, because I've been lucky enough to have a lot of friends that run comic book stores. So they've asked to, put the book in their shop. So, I'll definitely keep everybody updated on where it can be purchased, but it'll be in different places all over. So just be on the lookout, and I'll definitely keep everyone updated.
Great. We'll have links to the Facebook page and your DeviantArt as well
cool.
with the cast.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob.
All right, Ray. And that's it for today's show. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me at rob@sketchcraft. That's sketch, CRAFT.com, name of the podcast.com, rob@sketchcraft.com. I will talk to you all, guys, very, very soon. We've got another commentary coming up after this, and then we're going to be moving into game jamming. Y'all have a great time. Talk to you later. Bye.